All right, so here we are at the top of the hour, so let us get underway here. Um, First, I am going to say hello and welcome. Today's subject of the day is programming efficiency tools. Wait, that's being overrun here by open windows. We're going to talk about programming efficiency tools today. So what that means is, well, first, we have a very special guest, the sports turf manager from Vanderbilt University, Ryan Storey. Thanks for joining us today, Ryan.
How are you?
And we are going to talk about programming efficiency just using the WeatherTRAK. If you joined us last week for our conversation about auto mode, it was a lot of slides and not a lot of demos. And this week we've flipped the script and we're going to do a lot of demos and very few slides. So what we want to talk about with programming efficiency tools is how to use the WeatherTRAK Central to make big changes, to make managing either large controllers or multiple controllers in a portfolio something that's very easy to do. And you can use the tools inside the WeatherTRAK to make changes to multiple stations on a controller, or use the tools to make multiple or changes to multiple stations across multiple controllers. Whether that's station programming or days and times kind of water restriction stuff. We'll talk about all of that. Before we do, I want to take a second and talk to Ryan. We'll bounce out of this slideshow here. Ryan, how are things in Tennessee going?
Hot, sunny, everything's good.
Excellent, excellent. I always start by asking our water managers, how many WeatherTRAKs do you manage?
So currently we have, let's see, online, we're in the process of installing a whole new section of them. Right now, let me look on my app. We've got 1, 2.
He's got it pulled up on the side. He's like,
yeah.
Just make changes.
There's 5 active, and we've got 3 more going in.
So. Beautiful. Thank you for that. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And throughout the conversation today, we'll talk about tips and tricks in efficient management. So if you have any of those for the listeners that always like to hear you talk more than me, I don't know what that's all about. But definitely, if you have something for us, we definitely want to hear it. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen here and going through a quick demonstration of WeatherTRAK Central. So we're going to log in to WeatherTRAK.net. And the first conversation we want to look at is making changes to a single controller. So for folks that only manage 1 or 2 controllers in their portfolio, if you are making changes to a station, we'll go to the Smart Irrigation tab and the Program page. And for our demonstration today, we're going to pick on a demo site that I have 4 controllers on. So I have this corporate demo OptiFlow site, and OptiFlow doesn't change the way that we schedule irrigation on a station. So the first thing we want to do is go to our program page and open up our stations menu. And you see here we've got 3 different sections. We've got auto mode, and those are all the stations in auto mode. We've got all of our stations in user mode, and this is where we want to start. If I wanted to come in and I saw that all of these stations were programmed in user mode, and we've talked before about the difference between user and auto mode. If you're using the auto mode or automated by WeatherTRAK, you're using the WeatherTRAK scientific weather-based irrigation. So in this demo, I've got a bunch of those controllers that maybe we're doing overseeding, right? And so we have taken the user program and said, I want what I want. I want to be able to depend on it. But now I want to switch all of those stations back to auto mode. We're done with the overseeding. And so that can be a lot, right? If you have this many stations on a controller, we're looking at 48 stations. Going one by one can be a daunting chore. So what I do on WeatherTRAK.net is select all. This top box right here allows me to select all of the stations on this and apply the changes that I want to make to all of those stations. So first thing I do is select all stations or any stations, right? I can go through and one at a time select a group of stations. It doesn't have to be all of them. But for this example, we'll switch them all. I'll select all, and then I'll come down to this gray box down here at the bottom, and I'll find the column that I want to make a change. And in this case, I want to change the station mode from user to auto. So if I want to change all of those from user to auto, I select the auto mode in the gray box down at the bottom, and then preview changes, and that will make the change on the program page. So you'll see all of these stations set up in auto, and then when I hit save and send, that will send that command to the cloud and easily switch all of those, 46 stations from user mode to auto mode, and reduce the level of work on making a lot of changes all at once. So now that they're in auto mode, we can do a couple of different things. We'll have, let me blow this up a little bit. We'll make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see here. If I go here, blow this up. There we go. That might be a little bit easier. So here we have all my stations, and you can see mostly cool season turf. Well, in Colorado, all my stations have clay loam soil. So this sandy soil isn't going to fly where I'm at. So again, in auto mode, you can change all of the station programming if you select all, and change any category, any one of the variables that we look at for the automated by WeatherTRAK program. So I can go in here and I can change from sandy to clay loam, preview changes, 48 stations, as easy as that. Now, this isn't a permanent change until you hit save and send. So make sure you're hitting save and send. And that makes it real easy. And then I can come in here and I can say, look at this. I've got trees, and maybe I want stations 3 and 4 to be trees. I can either select those two and come down to the bottom and change the plant type like that, right? Same as I've done in the past. And when I come back to the top, there they are at trees. Or we have a great feature that allows us to copy and paste programming from station to station. So if I wanted the identical program on multiple stations, say I wanted to copy station 2 and paste that into station 5. Now, if you watch those plant types, it's easiest thing to see. I can go in and I can say, change that to native grass, right? I can just change one station at a time. So these are the kind of tools that will make it easy to change any station settings, make it very easy to go through and quickly program even a very large controller. While I save and send to that, Ben Slick, anything to add on to that?
No, it looks really fast. So, you know, if you have the same ability on the mobile app to do these things, changing settings one at a time, you know, how would they use this globally on a mobile app, Ben?
The big station settings are reserved really for WeatherTRAK.net. We do have on the mobile app, it is all one station at a time. So you're not gonna have this grouping feature, but there is something on the controller. There is a copy and paste feature for at the controller that can make programming at the controller very efficient as well. So
I would argue that's a benefit, really, as opposed to a lack of a feature, simply because on a small screen format, managing that many changes at once, you know, is error prone. So putting the water manager in the hands of a bigger screen, giving the field person individual control for individual stations, I think it's the right mix.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this format makes it much easier to see everything and less mistakes will happen. The format of the app is really designed to look at one station at a time. So And then Ryan, does that make sense? Any questions on that?
I mean, that's exactly what I do. We're running, especially for our athletic field stuff, we've got our however many stations are all warm season turf or cool season turf. So if I just need to make an adjustment, like my example was going to be the overseed. So we do that at overseed where we can kind of control our own moisture, but every other time we just stay on auto. So it's really easy, really fast.
Talk a little bit more about your general philosophy on overseeding. How many times a year do you do it? How long do you leave a station in a user program before you switch it back to auto? Do you ever use user with ET to help augment your overseeding programs, or do you rely solely on your own judgment?
A little bit of all the above. So normally we overseed about 12 acres of just our athletic turf, perennial ryegrass into Bermuda. Anywhere from mid-September, early October, just kind of depends on our weather. Start off normally with just user mode. And then as we get some germination, we'll kind of move into a little bit more ET. And then once it's established, we do our big change like we just did, switch everything back to cool season instead of warm season grass. So now we're going cool season. So we go in, preview changes, save and send. Now we're growing cool season grass and we go ET mode, just auto. And we rely on auto pretty much every time other than overseeding.
Yep. So to get the best performance out of an overseeding regimen, do you top dress? Do you put, amendment in? Do you tine and punch the fields? I mean, what do you do to get ready for the overseed?
So most of the times I've done a little bit of, I guess, all of it, whether you go in and do a verticut or most of our mechanical stuff that I've tried, you can kind of see all of your lines and stuff that you leave for a while. You get better germination in more exposed areas than you do areas that weren't as exposed to the soil. So here lately, what we've just done is we'll take a greens groomer, broom our Bermuda, kind of stand it up, throw out our seed, turn on some water, maybe throw a light coat of sand on top of that and groom it in and water it for a little while.
Nice. All right, so let's talk about what that looks like on a much larger scale, okay? So what we did here was one controller at a time, right? We can make big changes to a single controller, but we also want to talk about changing multiple controllers, creating what we call station groups. So for this feature, we come from the Smart Irrigation tab over to the Controllers tab, right? We were on the program page, now we're on the Controllers page. And the station grouping tool starts on the Controllers page because we want to first select whichever controllers we want to make all of those changes to. Whichever stations we need to add into the group, the first step is to select the controller where those stations live. So we're gonna use an example here. We're gonna just select all 4 of the OptiFlow demo controllers. This is all one site in my example. So we're gonna say, I wanna create a station group out of all of the stations on this OptiFlow demo site. Okay, so the first thing I do is select those controllers, and then I come up here on this advanced drop-down menu. There is an option called Create Station Group. And in this example, I want to say, turn all of my turf stations up by 10%. I just want to throw a little extra water down on my turf station. So I create a station group. And now you see, as it saves through, this is no longer a list of all of my controllers, but rather a list of all of the stations on the controllers that I selected. So if I scroll down here past 48, you'll see where the south controller ends and the west controller starts, right? So this is all of the stations on all 4 of the controllers that I selected. Now, in our example, we want to add 10% to our turf stations, right? So we want to make a station group out of all of our turf stations. You see right here, we have stations that are plants or trees and medium water use shrubs or native grasses or whatever else it is. We only want to change our cool season turf. So this top gray line right here with all these empty boxes, these are all filtering tools. So I want to filter all of these stations by plant type to create a group of stations that is only my cool season turf. So I go to my filter and I type in any part of that. And notice, as soon as I click on this, we're going to filter out any stations that are not our cool season turf, right? So as easy as that, boom. Now I have all of the stations that are only my cool season turf stations. And I've filtered out all the rest of that stuff, right? I don't need that in this group. So you can apply multiple filters. If I wanted just the cool season turf with rotor heads and I could do multiple filters, no problem. Filter this down until you get exactly the group that you want. And then you say, these are all of the stations that I want in my group, and we're going to call it cool turf. And we're going to call it all turf, okay? Oh, actually, I'm going to change this to, because I know there's warm season turf in there too. So we'll just apply that filter. And say, once I've got the stations that I want selected, I save this station group, right? Now this whole group is one thing that the system can look at. This is, we'll see as soon as it saves through here. We've got all of our cool season turf. And once that saves through, I can do what we call batch action. And the batch action means that I want to affect the same change across all of my stations, right? I want to send the same programming change to every station inside this group. So you can see here for batch action, I can change any of the station settings. I could change all of these stations from auto mode to user mode and back again. I could change sprinkler type. For our example, we want to come down here and look at the percent adjust. Now this is, I chose this one specifically because there's actually options that we need to discuss. If I select auto mode percent adjust, I can send all of my stations a +10, but in real world, I advocate for my users to use the percent adjust to dial in their stations. And if I send a +10 to all stations, it negates kind of the work that they've done. You can see over here in my example, one station's turned down 35%, one station's turned down 5%. So instead of using the auto mode percent adjust, I want to use what we call the relative percent adjust. This will take all of the stations from where they're at and send the same change. So if I send a relative percent adjust of +10, it will take this -35 up to -25, and it will take this -5 up to +5. So it adds 10% to every station from where it's at now. So I apply this change, and quickly and easily we'll be able to make that change, affect that change on all of these stations. And then just to finish the story, if I want to change those things back, once I've made a station group, that station group is saved. I don't have to recreate the wheel every time. So here, if I click that manage stations, you can see all of the different groups that I've made. And we called it this one. And you can see I made changes to 179 stations in that group. And I can just pull up those groups. And if I wanted to switch it back, easy as that, right? I pull up that same group, I send a batch action, and I can turn them all back just as easily as I made the change.
So Ryan, before WeatherTRAK, how would you have managed this kind of change, to the controls on campus?
A lot of walking.
A lot of walking.
Yeah. We have slowly but surely we're converting, but as of last check, I think we still had 70 something still regular irrigation clocks on campus that you have to go and either do a seasonal adjust or whatever you want to do. So now I can do it from here. I can do it from Clear Lake, California. I can do it wherever I want to do it. It's easy.
Yeah. That time savings matters, especially in a campus environment where you've got, how many acres in total are you managing with 70, 80 controllers?
330.
Yeah. That's a lot of walking.
And some are more specialized than others. So
Right.
it's a lot easier, like you said, to go and say, we're 95 degrees today, and instead of walking to even 20 of the controllers that we know are slopes and are going to dry out, we can just go in here and filter out, our slopes and then say, let's increase all those 10%, batch action, bam, it's done.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's really the heart of the conversation, right? That efficiency, that time savings, saving you steps and allowing you to focus on things that are the most important, right? Those places that are eyesores, the breaks, the things that demand your attention, you're freed up to go ahead and provide the level of detail that those kind of issues need.
Right.
Yeah,
how many staff? How many staff do you have?
So under campus grounds, there's a total of 24, and then I have 4 just for sports turf. So 28 total. Get split up through, and we have specialists that, horticulture and all that kind of stuff, but not everybody knows how to go. You can't just pick up the radio and say, hey, go turn station 5 back 10%, or go turn program A back. We need to dial it back. There's water standing over there. Well, you might only have, out of those 24 people, you might only have 1 or 2 people that actually know how to do it. So with what all's going on right now, who knows who's going to be on campus, who's going to be off campus, who's going to get sick, who's not. I mean, even if I had the flu or, God forbid, coronavirus or whatever it is, I can do all this stuff from home.
Yep.
Where I know it's going to get done.
Right.
Yeah, and done right? Done to your standards. You can filter all those standards through one kind of perspective, have one person in charge of making sure that the management is the same across all controllers and in all areas of the campus.
Because the beauty with it is too, I mean, we have one of those coaches, who watches YouTube videos and knows how to grow grass that's from across the pond. So all my controllers are locked, so he can go push whatever. But he might think he's going to do something.
Yeah. That's where the controller settings change history report comes in handy, right?
Exactly.
Hey, coach, I see what you're doing in here. I don't like it. All right, one last demo, and then we'll be done. All right, so that shows us how to manage the station settings. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is the ability to provide program changes. And this is really important for areas of water restriction, right? In Denver, we have a little bit different restriction every year, and sometimes they change halfway through the year. And so the ability to come in here and change start times, water windows, and water days across all of my controllers, across all of my programs in one foul swoop is a really, really powerful tool that I think WeatherTRAK has. So it's not just your station programming. If I wanted to go in and say, I want to make all of my controllers now only water on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right? Those are the new water restrictions handed down. The process is identical. The first thing I do is create a group. So I select the controllers that I want in that group, and let's not do all of them. Let's just pick on our OptiFlow controllers for today. So I select the controllers that I want to manage, and again, you see as it rolls through, now I have all of the programs on all 4 of those controllers, and they all have different water day mode. But I can go in here and I can change that. I can say I want all of these to have the same water schedule. So I can select the programs by program. If I have all of my turf on program A, right? On every controller, I have my turf zones on program A. I can use those filter tools and filter out all of the programs that aren't my turf. We're just going to say, for the sake of argument, that I want to change all of my programs. So I come in here and I select all of those stations, and we're going to call, or all those programs, and we're going to call it all programs. We're going to save this program group now. 32 separate programs. Oh, could not be because I've already called something that. Let's call it Ben's program. Sorry. The problem with doing these demos, I do them enough that I repeat names every now and again. Ready to go? Oh. There we go. So now I've created this group of all of my programs, all 32 programs, and I can come in here and say, I want to keep my start times. Each program has its own individual start time, but I want to change the water day mode on all 32 programs. And in our example, we wanted to make sure that they only watered on the start times that tie to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I select the water day mode called days of the week, and then I select the days where we want to apply those start times. We set that and update all 32 programs at once. So again, this is, go ahead.
The power of this really came into play for one of our California customers who, in a municipal environment, was managing 725 controllers throughout her city. And her water agency, as we went through drought, restricted the number of days a week she was allowed to water from 4 to 3, and she had to comply. And so with 728 controllers managed by 10 different landscaping firms across 2,000 irrigated acres, right? It was just almost an impossible task to get every controller modified with days of week. We were able, through the power of this feature set, to push those changes automatically to her, and then prove that they were watering to that. So from a report standpoint, she could comply. And then 25 days later, her agency relented and said, okay, we'll give you an extra day. And so with just, again, this same feature grouping, was able to push a third day onto her schedules automatically, as opposed to dispensing and paying for those landscapers to go out and make those physical changes again to the controller. So, you know, at scale, these kinds of features can really benefit both in time and dollars avoided if you're paying for people to go manage these changes.
Absolutely. All right, so those are the demos. That's what we got for today. Remember that the Q&A box is open. If you guys have questions about these features or have anything that you want us to discuss, we'd be happy to hear your questions. In the meantime,
we do have a question, Ben.
We do? Awesome.
Can we revert to our original program settings after I make a change without having to reprogram the controller?
Absolutely. Just like in the station settings, you can pull that program group and just set those up however you want, but it would be the same change to all. So it's not like a revert. So I got to be careful how I say that. There's no going back. You can't select all and say undo that. You'd have to go back and individually change each station unless they're all making the same change, and then you can just duplicate this process.
Okay. And all of these group changes do show up in a change setting history report format, and does it label them that they were a group change?
And in the settings change history report, you'll see what the value was before the change and what the value was after the change. So not only can we identify when it happened, but if we need to change it back, you can find out how it was programmed previously.
Yep. Yep.
All right. So Ryan, I ask all of our guests every week. We finish off by asking the guests, what does WeatherTRAK save you?
Sleep.
It saves you sleep?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I used to have dreams when I was a kid, like you wake up when you're in college or something, you're like, you've realized you had this class that you never went to all year, and now there's a final for it. And so, like, now as an adult with a job, you have these dreams of, like, did I get irrigation? Oh, no, you know, I don't know. And now I just go on my phone, whether it's 11 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh yeah, it's running right now. So
I love it.
Yeah.
This is episode 15 and nobody has said sleep. So good job.
yeah, it saves sleep. It saves man hour. It saves a lot. I mean, like I could not imagine trying to schedule my crew for something as simple as going to change programs during a drought. I mean, how many man hours are you losing by going and try? All right, we got 2,200 irrigated acres and however many clocks you said. I mean, you're going to spend the better part of your day just assigning crews to clocks and just having clocks. So
just assigning the work, never mind doing the work. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you got to figure out who's going where, who's going to do what. It's just it's a wasted day.
Well, Ryan,
Absolutely.
As you make the case for expanding your WeatherTRAK deployment at Vanderbilt, do time and motion improvements, if these kinds of efficiencies come into your business plans and justifications?
They do. I mean, we obviously try to justify anything we buy or whatever dollar we spend. We try to attach something to that dollar where, instead of spending, one labor hour on this, we're spending 5 minutes and that frees up the other 55 minutes where a guy can go do something else. So for myself, or our horticulturalist or whoever's managing our WeatherTRAK systems, we can go do this on our phone or at a computer, and that frees up that guy. All these new constructions, nothing is more labor. I guess it's more labor intensive than anything, whether we're adding amphitheater lawns or more hardscape areas with an interior courtyard to where, that guy takes time to, now that he could just pull right up to something and mow it, but now he's got to get his push mower off, try to walk, find access into that building, and then he's got to go mess with the irrigation clock, and then he's got to do this where he just says, hey, water's starting to puddle over here. Can you make an adjustment? Bam, I do the adjustment. He's got the rest of his day to go do what he needs to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of our customers, when seeking to get more, bang for their buck with WeatherTRAK, have to write justifications to their management in order to fund the next round of deployment. And many times they overlook the efficiencies in labor, either avoiding hiring additional people or making their existing people more productive. It's just a thing for folks to think about as they look to do more with less.
Yeah, and even using the user ET mode or whatever, I'm no scientist, but there's a lot of people out there a lot smarter than me doing ET data and all this stuff. So I rely heavily on just auto mode, and it's worked out great for me so far. And even like I said, in installing these new Rainbird, or not the getting away from, we had Rainbird, and the problem we had was it was a good system for us, but we ourselves were the problem because our IT department didn't want anybody having access through our firewalls. So instead of trying to bang my head against the wall, trying to figure a way around it, why don't we just log on to somebody else's servers? And so, bam, that was a solution for us. I mean, instead of all right, we got to do IQ here and something else over here. Well, why don't we just go WeatherTRAK and solve everybody's problems in one fell swoop? And that solves everybody's issues, and it's been great for us.
I love it.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us, that's still the website. Let's bring up the PowerPoint here. Come on. Where'd it go? There it is. That brings us to the tout for next week's conversation, where we are going to talk about those sustainability programs, implementing successful sustainability programs with a very special guest, Zach Brown. Mr. Slick is going to take the lead on that conversation. Ben Coffey will be on vacation. So looking forward to watching from a distance. I will definitely tune in, but I will not be on the call next week. And we will be talking to Zach Brown from CBRE. He's the Director of Energy and Sustainability, about his implementation plans and kind of the perspective of very detailed energy management.
So the tone of this webinar will be very different in the sense that we won't be demonstrating a WeatherTRAK feature or talking about WeatherTRAK functionality. It'll be really getting inside the head of a property management executive who, on behalf of his clients, looks at ways for them to save electricity, natural gas, and water, and talking about how he defines his programs, how he measures success for his programs. So it's really going to be more of a business conversation. And so all of you in our current audience that are WeatherTRAK devotee are welcome. But if you've got other folks in your worlds that you want to invite to this more thought leadership webinar, please invite them or let us know who we should invite on your behalf.
Outstanding. And with that, I think we call it a day. Thank you all for tuning in this week, and we look forward to having you. I'm Ben Coffey, and would like to just thank Ryan Storey for making time for us today. You've been an awesome interview, an awesome special guest, so thank you for that.
Enjoyed it.
Mr. Slick?
Ryan, thanks very much. We share that same dream of waking up in the middle of the night about a college class that you just didn't finish, and you're really a fraud. Did your whole life become invalidated because you didn't take that final? Yeah, you're not alone, brother.
And Ryan, you want to take us out?
Sure. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope everybody has good weather, good seasons, and good turf.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.